everybody, it's Thursday, March 27th, 2025. Welcome to the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast, where you can buy us some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. It's me, your man, MG Marcus Grant, joined by Michael F. Florio and Laquan Jones. And if you are watching on YouTube, which, by the way, if you don't know, all these shows end up on the YouTube, so you can come watch us there. We are all dressed in baseball gear because it's opening day. Like, it's for real opening day.
I just learned that the other opening day wasn't the real opening day.
So
but the games count? Like,
the
what?
games count. The Dodgers and Cubs played 2 games in Japan last week, and then they both came back to the States and played a few more exhibition games. And now it's like really the season.
Sure.
You know, yeah,
it's not confusing or anything.
It'd be like if the NFL started with like a Saturday London game, and then we're like, all right, Thursday's the real, like we would still celebrate Thursday as the real kickoff, you know?
Yeah.
I think the Hall of Fame game should count. Why not?
No, it absolutely should not count. It absolutely should not count. No, it shouldn't. Although if I could be old man yelling at cloud for a moment here, I still truly believe that Major League Opening Day should be on the first Tuesday in April. It should be played the day after some college basketball team cuts down the nets for the national championship. And it should start in Cincinnati. That's just how it should be. That's just me. It's how it always was. You know,
I know like March opening days.
March opening day is weird. It's weird. But it is absolutely peak Chicago Cubs to be 0-2 on opening day. So, it just is. All right, let's move on from that, because otherwise, Florio, you and I could spend the next half hour talking about baseball, and Laquan would be generally lost and bored, and most of our audience would probably tune out. So
I'm learning.
Laquan will tune into Severance. So just put it on.
Darryl Strawberry. I can name baseball players, man.
Yes, we love that the first baseball player you got excited about was Darryl Strawberry, which is kind of very on brand for you. Absolutely on brand for you. So last show on Tuesday, we had planned to kind of start diving into the projected first round of the NFL draft and sort of talking about some of those prospects there, but we got caught up talking about our bounce back players and went too long, so we moved that to today's show. We'll also catch you up on our fantasy rookie QB seasons bracket. Give you the update there. Laquan is going to be unhappy about it, so look forward to that. But hopefully he'll get a little bit happier when he gives us his latest Severance update. Hopefully you and Sabrina are on the same page. All right, so I look forward to that at the end of the show. But let's get started, as we normally do, with some headlines. And disclaimer, a little bit of a peek behind the curtain as we talk about the New York Giants and their quarterback situation. They went out and signed Jameis Winston to a 2-year deal and signed Russell Wilson to a 1-year deal. We had a whole long conversation on Tuesday about Jameis Winston going to the Giants and what it meant for Malik Neighbors, what it maybe meant for what they were going to do in the NFL draft. And before we could edit the show and get it posted, the Giants went out and signed Russell Wilson. So we had to, take that whole Jameis conversation out of the show from the weird things like that happen. So now that we've done this, and Florida, you put on Blue Sky the other day that the, Malik Neighbors to the moon basically went from March 21st of 2025 to March 25th of 2025. Not even a full week did it last. So now that we are here, what happens? What do now, as Charlie Kelly would say, about Malik Neighbors? What are we doing?
Obviously Malik Neighbors, the ultimate ceiling is with Jameis Winston, but everyone knows that. And we were talking about it. Is he a top 3 wide receiver? Is he going to be a top 3 pick off the board? He is not going to be that now if Russell Wilson is the starter. But it's the flip side of like the argument that we made with Garrett Wilson, where I was saying like, I feel like we were overvaluing him and now people are souring on him. But to me, it feels like he's being appropriately valued. We were pushing Malik Neighbors up to the ceiling. Now he's going to come back down, probably be a late first round pick, something like that. But I mean, look, you saw what he did last year with the quartet of quarterbacks he had. Russell Wilson is what he is at this point, but he is certainly an upgrade to that quarterback room. And specifically, he is a big upgrade on throws 10 or plus more air yards. which is huge because as someone who watched a lot of Malik Neighbors last year, it was like, yo, there's guys getting open every time, but his quarterbacks can't hit him more than 10 yards down the field. Like, so all of his targets were short and stuff. And we know he could win downfield and everything. So I think this is a huge thing. And I'm still all in on Malik Neighbors, but I just think you get a little bit of a discount there. And real quick, shout out to Russell Wilson for not wasting any time. He was at the Knicks game yesterday. Literally autographing footballs and throwing them into the stands. Like, he is trying to win over New York immediately.
Hey, I'm not mad at it, right? Like, you're with a new fan base. Yeah, and the last couple of stops have admittedly not been great. So, look, read the room. Understand that, maybe there's a little bit of anxiety about you showing up in New York. So what's the best way to alleviate that? Show up at a Knicks game, smile big, toss some gifts to the crowd. Like, I'm not mad at it at all.
Now he needs to pull up with a chopped cheese with the Bev, man. He'd be so New York.
Some Tim's on.
But, I mean, Laquan, are we certain? Are we totally sold that Russell Wilson is going to be the starting quarterback? I mean, this is not peak Russell Wilson anymore. This is not, Seattle Seahawks get to the playoffs, be a Super Bowl contender Russell Wilson anymore. This is sort of journeyman. I'm just trying to find one last, he's like in a heist movie, right? Like, I need one last big score before I go into retirement sort of thing. Are we sure? Are we guaranteed that he beats out Jameis in a competition?
I think so. And I think he's on his journey of just like traveling. He's just traveling the country now. He just happens to be finding work there. That's what it feels like. Like, honestly, I do think like he's keeping up in rhythm of what we always known about him. He'll start off hot, and then by the time November and December comes around, they will be bad. And Russell Wilson, he just falls off a cliff in production. I will be happy to see Jameis Winston in November. And I'll be happy to get Malik Neighbors where he's going to be falling into the late first round. And then when it's late in the fantasy playoff season, oh my God, we're cooking with hot fire right now if Winston ends up getting back in the saddle. And I honestly think that's what's going to be, because New York, it's a pressure market. Like, everybody talks about how hard it is to play in Philly. No, New York, you got the spotlight on you. And if you're not balling, you're going to hear about it. And honestly, I think Malik Neighbors, to start off his career with Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, Tim Boyles of the world, it's crazy to think that, he'll be copacetic. He'll be cool, calm, and collected. No, I would be frustrated if I'm Neighbors if Russell Wilson isn't playing top tier football with multiple weapons now that I think they're going to add in the draft. And, I got Travis Hunter getting projected there. I would love to see that trio. And I think that will actually help Russell. But ultimately, I think he'll be a starter. And I think Winston would just have to wait for his moment like he does every single time he signs to a team.
I'm looking at Russell Wilson's numbers over the last 4 years, right? That's the last year in Seattle, the 2 years in Denver, and then last year in Pittsburgh. He has averaged 21 touchdowns.
Yikes.
Averaged 21 touchdowns. He has,
not great.
On average, has just barely cracked 3,000 passing yards for the season.
And what was it, like 2020, his last time he had like 30 touchdowns? Like, that was a decent year. Like, we were honestly like, okay, that's an okay year.
He had 40 touchdowns that year.
And it's like, whoa, what happened?
His career has nosedived. Like I don't know if we've ever seen, and at least in a long time.
It's been a while.
It's been a little bit. Also because he has nosedived, but has continued to get starting jobs. I think we've seen quarterbacks sort of nosedive, but their career arc tends to be that they are backups, right? They tend to just, I'll get a job. I'm going to sign for kind of a minimum. I'm going to be the backup. If somebody gets hurt, then I get to get in and play. I can't think of a time we've seen a guy fall off a cliff like this and then continue to get looks from other teams.
He went from a Hall of Fame contender to a journeyman, overnight.
But do you know what it is? It's the moon ball. Everybody loves it. And he's pretty good at it. I mean, last season of like 20 plus air yards, he was second in completions behind Sam Darnold. So he's conservative with the ball when he's gone that deep, and he's making the plays. So it's like, I think that's what's still getting him work.
Here's a crazy stat. 2 quarterbacks have won a playoff game in MetLife Stadium. It's Eli Manning and Russell Wilson.
He's undefeated at MetLife, man. 4-0, baby.
That's wild. Yeah, I just want to, you're right about the moon ball. what happens when the moon ball is gone? You know, it doesn't last forever, right? I mean, remember the last year or two of Peyton Manning, where it was a struggle watching him. Remember the last year or so of Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger, when those guys struggled to push the ball downfield, and it was painful to watch.
This feels like his last chance to me. Like, if he doesn't play well here, he's a backup next year.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know why he's starting? Sierra. He's got that aura around him that he's still a big superstar, you know?
Oh, man.
Oh, I never thought we were going to get to that.
He's got the aura. Like, you see Russ with it. Marcus, you remember he was walking around Radio Row with his entourage and stuff? Yeah. Like, he looks the part. Not on the field, but off the field.
Wow. All right. So that being said, are we all sold that the Giants are not spending a high pick on a quarterback? Like, are they now officially out of the Shedeur Sanders market?
I don't get this line of thinking at all, to be honest.
I think they're in. I honestly think they'll do the impossible where we think they're not going to do it, and they'll do it. Like, honestly, you got to look for the future. I mean, Russ ain't the future, and Winston ain't the future. Those contracts ain't last in past, 2 seasons. So it's like, get the future now.
I guess I would feel more confident in that idea if they hadn't signed both guys, right? If they had signed either Jameis or Russ, then I could say, all right, well, now you draft Shedeur and he competes this year, and worst case scenario, he's your guy next year. I don't know that
you ain't sitting Shedeur in New York, man.
I think they signed Winston to be like our cover the bases guy. Like, all right, if Sanders isn't, if he goes at 2, we have someone that we can trust. And then John Mara came out and was like, I don't like this move at all. And they were like, all right, well, now we need to cover our bases again. Winston is permanently our backup. So we're going to get Russ here. And if Sanders is there at 3, we have 3 quarterbacks we feel comfortable with. And if not, we don't need to panic because we have someone that we think the coaching staff could win with. The other thing is, like, look at these contracts. The 2 quarterbacks combined are making $500,000 more pre-incentives than Daniel Jones is getting from the Colts.
Yes.
They're making almost like a quarter of what Daniel Jones alone was making last year. Like, there's not a lot of investment here. It's a 1-year thing. So to me, I read this as like they're covering their bases. Maybe they don't like Sanders or something, but I think if he's there at 3 and he's their guy, they're still taking him.
Yeah, maybe. It just, I mean, we'd spent all that last show talking about Jameis, and then like in the afternoon, we get the text from Laquan. It's like, what are the Giants doing? Which immediately sent me to the internet. Like, wait, what the hell just happened?
As I was cutting up strawberries, by the way.
Oh, of course.
A couple of Darryls.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole thing right now. I await any further decisions by the New York Giants. A little further north, the New England Patriots now have a wide receiver to go with their quarterback. They signed Stefon Diggs to a 3-year, $69 million max deal. Now, he's not guaranteed to get all that money, but could potentially, with incentives, make up to $69 million. Laquan, I saw you post the other day, was it yesterday or today, that these fantasy streets are saying Stefon Diggs is washed.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying he's washed. I'm just asking, could he be washed? He played well at the start of last year, but then also got hurt, about midway through the season. He's getting older. He's in a new place. He's a guy who has been very temperamental in his career. That's, I think, putting it mildly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he is washed, but that risk is still out there, right?
Yeah, it's still out there, but he dealt with that last year of all those things. Like, we already knew the diva aura, and he was going to a new place that he had to figure out, and he had to play nice with others. It's kind of similar to this side as well, too, but it's just that now he has that injury you have to worry about. And it's the post-ACL thing that I know a lot of people are going to be a little bit hesitant to take him in drafts, but it's more so looking like this is still Stefon Diggs. They still have a team of wide receiver 4s and 5s. Like, he is the best weapon in the building. So they're going to feed him, and they're going to have to. And you have a quarterback that can do so. There's so much upside with Drake May and this Diggs connection. Like, I feel as though, like, if you're going to pass on Diggs, pass on him for a good reason. pass on him because you already have your wide receivers set up in those drafts or wherever he's going to go. Because he's wide receiver 57 right now as of today on Underdog. So it's like one of those things like, if he's that cheap, I'm going to take him absolutely. So I feel as though like people are pointing to him being washed because he wasn't the Stefon Diggs that we were so used to in Buffalo. The big highlight reels, the big numbers, and like the analytical folks. I said it in my video yesterday, today, whatever it was posted. But more so of like his yards per route run, they go to efficiency and his productivity. The dude still had a 73% catch rate. Reliable. He's still able to put up 1,000 yards if he was still on pace. He was wide receiver 8 in those first 8 games. So to me, he could still ball. It's just a matter of how he's going to fit in this Patriots offense, which most likely will be run heavy. And is he going to be healthy enough to stay on the field?
I think it's cute that you think he has to play nice in New England. I mean, look at that wide receiver room. Who gonna check me, boo? Like who's gonna step to him in that wide receiver room, right? Like, who's better than him? Even a diminished Stefon Diggs. Demario Douglas, nice piece. I'd still take Stefon Diggs over him.
Josh Allen's last 2 number 1s are playing both on the Patriots now. Crazy.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
I mean, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Keyshawn Boutte, like who really has the same stature as Stefon Diggs? This is not the Bill Belichick do your job Patriots. It's not even the, Gerard Mayo, I'm going to basically bash my team publicly sort of Patriots.
You guys suck.
It's I guess Mike Vrabel can run a tight ship. We'll see how Stefon Diggs gets along with Josh McDaniels, for instance. I think that part remains to be seen. What also remains to be seen is, Florio, I'm gonna put words in your mouth here. Your quarterback rankings now are going to be Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, right? Is that how it goes now?
Pretty much. No, I still am excited for it. I think I'm probably the most excited of anyone in fantasy space for Drake May, but I think this obviously helps him a lot because, like Laquan was saying, I still think Diggs is a very reliable chain mover. Last year, he was averaging his highest separation score or tied his highest separation score in the next gen stats era. So that's really great to see. But his air yards per target was a career low. And that was already the big knock on him when his final year in Buffalo was like he lost that second gear. He lost that downfield capability. So, and that's pre-ACL. I don't think he's going to have that back in his game at all. I think he is going to be more, I think he'll play in the slot more than probably ever. I think he'll be a possession guy, a chain mover, someone that can rack up PPR points. But I still think, look, I like Mac Hollins as a deep threat, but I still think the Patriots need more speed and they need more out wide speed, which is why I'm still trying to wish cast Travis Hunter there at 4 because I think that would be the ideal fit because he's not going to play every snap as a wide receiver. You have someone reliable in Diggs that can, when he comes back, that can man the load when Hunter's not out there. But when you put Hunter out there, you put Diggs in the slot, then Hunter becomes your out wide downfield threat. Like now we're cooking with fire, I think, if you're Drake May and the Patriots. But he got a lot more help this week, but he's not finished yet, right? Like I still think the Patriots need to add at least one more wide receiver in the draft.
I did get a text from a good friend of mine late last night, and I'll just read it to you. Not saying it's going to happen, but if Diggs puts up numbers and in 2 years we're talking about May being a top 5 QB, we might owe him an apology. Not Florio, because Florio always believed, but maybe a lot of other people.
That's what Diggs does. He just goes and makes quarterbacks top 5. He had the opposite effect on CJ Stroud, though.
Although that wasn't all on Diggs.
No, that's not his fault.
Because, his job isn't to pick up blitz.
The offensive lineman they shipped away had a personality issue.
As in,
that's why they were bad. Dysfunction.
Okay.
This is me just reading the comments. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And look, shout out Diggs, because I thought he cost himself a ton of money, and apparently he's going to make more money now with this deal than he would have if he stayed with the Bills. So shout out to him.
I know a lot of people saying they overpaid for Diggs, and maybe they did, but I think if you're the Patriots, one, you have a lot of cap space, so you can afford it, but also you kind of were going to have to overpay for somebody. Like maybe you do draft somebody.
Maybe place to go.
Right. Maybe they draft Travis Hunter. I don't know. Maybe they draft another wide receiver and try to build from there. But historically, they have not been great at drafting that position. you want to bring in talent, you are probably going to have to overpay for somebody. I just think that's the reality of it for them. Staying in the AFC East and maybe off the field a little bit more. Told us this morning, the Bills teaming up with Hallmark to produce a Christmas movie. Last year around this time, we were talking about the Chiefs and their Hallmark movie. And you know, I can't say I've ever watched I have watched a couple of Hallmark Christmas films. I take that back. They are exactly what you think they would be. So I look forward to the Bills being in this film titled Holiday Touchdown, A Bills Love Story.
Is it just Josh Allen's wedding?
I'm just wondering, Florida, like, do Josh Allen and Haley Steinfeld, do they make an appearance in this thing? I mean, you have Hollywood stardom here. Like, you got to involve them some kind of way.
I think they'll be in it. I think because there's a lot of talk about like Josh Allen doing stuff post-career about maybe in entertainment or acting or whatever. So I think this might be his, like, it'll be a small cameo, like they'll be walking into the building or something like that. But I would not be surprised at all. And I've seen a lot of Hallmark Christmas movies. Nicolette's mom watches them year round. So I've seen a good amount of them. And this one is by far going to be the best.
I bet he's already stated it, planted that flag for sure.
The Rams.
You know what? We will buy it for you on DVD whenever it comes out.
Oh God, it's gonna be awful.
How many folding tables are going to be sacrificed? Like, is that like, if the craft services table, you're just going to have Bill's Mafia run in and just like dive on the craft services table?
To be on fire. Has to be on fire.
I think it's too violent for Hallmark movies.
Fire's not violent.
No, like the only fire you see in Hallmark movies is literally in a fireplace. Like, that's it. Like, you don't see, there's no wildfires in Hallmark films. Like, you know, I can tell you already what's going to be, though. It's going to be, you know, a busy career woman who lives her life in Manhattan, comes home to Western New York, and finds love again, probably at Highmark Stadium with, you know, somebody that she knew back in high school. And, you know, maybe Josh and Haley show up, you know, at a coffee shop and help facilitate a conversation. No, just they're all the same. Like, it's just, it's like schmaltzy movie Mad Libs, right? Like, you just fill in the blanks, and they're all pretty similar. So
the Bills are doing everything they can to roll out this new stadium, though, right? Like,
they really are.
Like, that's what the theory on Bill's Twitter is. This is the year they're going to win the Super Bowl, that the script writers are finally going to let them get theirs.
Script writers.
All right. I did not know the NFL script writers moonlighted for Hallmark or vice versa. No idea about that. So look forward to it. At some point, you know, maybe in the future, if we're still doing this in a couple of years, we can add this to like a film festival. We watch this movie.
Oh, God.
And, you know, compare and contrast it with the Chiefs one, because we should watch that one too at some point so we could talk about it. So diving into the kind of expected potential first round picks that have fantasy relevance, I went to NFL mock draft database and looked at their consensus big board and sort of, you know, extrapolated from there some guys who potentially could land in the first round. I want to start with a guy I'm listing him as athlete. Right? And that's Travis Hunter. The debate has been and will continue to be, should he play wide receiver? Should he play corner? Should he dabble in a little bit of both? You know, we will find out the answer to that, one, when he's drafted and when the team sort of shows up on the field for real and we see how he is used. But Florida, you talked about him maybe getting drafted by the Patriots at 4. I do think that is a very realistic possibility. And you talked about him maybe lining up out wide on occasion. He's an incredibly talented player. He's not a big man. My concern is, how does he deal with press coverage? Is his speed, is his athleticism enough? Is he a guy who can consistently win on the outside at the NFL level? And more importantly, will he get enough snaps to be a real impact player in fantasy, right? Like, if he's only playing 5-6 snaps a game at wide receiver, he's not a guy that we want in fantasy, is he?
No, but but any team that drafts him, please play him at wide receiver. Like, I know I don't scout cornerbacks. I'll say that right off the top. But I know he often gets called the best corner in this draft. Champ Bailey comps, all of that. He is the best wide receiver in this class, in my opinion, as well. And I know a lot of people feel that way. And Marcus, it's funny because I write down stuff as I'm watching them. And my biggest concern with him was like issues versus press at the NFL level. Because he can get pushed around off his route a little bit and stuff. But like he could win downfield. He's got elite body control, good hands. He could win after the catch. I think he is the only wide receiver from this draft class that would have been with the big guys from last year's, even if he's behind them. Like, I think he's the only one that could hold his own with that group. I just think the upside is so high. Even if you put him to like 20, 30 snaps maybe at wide receiver, something like that. My argument would be, quarterbacks aside, he should be the first player non-quarterback drafted because he's the Shohei Ohtani of football. And he brings value that I don't think is being properly calculated yet.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so hard to sort of measure because, in Colorado, he was literally playing like 100 snaps a game. I mean, he was playing every snap both ways, which it just feels impossible to do in the NFL. One, just physically, it's impossible to do. But the other part of it is learning the playbook and learning all the responsibilities that come with both being a wide receiver and being a corner. I mean, let's say he ends up, say, in New England, right? And so that means, a couple times a year, they got to face the Dolphins. He's going to have to, on one side, he's going to have to play wide receiver, and he's going to have to try to keep up with Tyreek Hill and or Jalen Waddle. He's going to have to try to, maybe line up against Garrett Wilson a couple times a year. That feels like a lot. I don't know, Laquan, is there like a threshold of snaps he needs for you to actually consider drafting him? Is it 30 snaps on offense? Do you have I'm asking you to kind of come up with this on the fly. Do you have like kind of a baseline?
Fade. Huge fade. Just based on, I think he will be real life, like more impactful of like fandom. Like, I definitely want to see him play both ways, but I'm not going to invest the headache of him playing corner for 2 games and then wide receiver on week 3 and then so on and so on, because I don't see this consistently happening every single game. He's going to play both ways. It's the NFL. You just named a couple of players he's going to have to keep up with on the outside. Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson. Like, you're going to have to keep up with like Stefon Diggs. Not Stefon Diggs. Well, Stefon Diggs at practice, but more so you're just looking at the players within his division that he's going to have to face twice a year, every year. There's no way he's going to play both ways. There's no way he's going to be an absolute threat as a wide receiver if he's getting banged up on the defense making these tackles, because he's still going to have to go out there and tackle grown men. Like grown veteran men, like men that are in their 30s probably, that are going to be able to just crush him with one just look at him. So I look at it as like for fantasy, like I get the hype. I get the excitement for it, but I can't put him on my roster and deal with that headache every single week, especially when you're going to have to pay a pretty penny in some of these rookie drafts to get him.
Yeah, I haven't done any.
I think I'm against you guys on this one.
Florio's full send. He's on.
Like, I get the concerns in fantasy, 100% get that. Like, but I think he's going to play more than we think. Like 100 snaps a game in college. He's not going to, I don't think they're going to ask him to be like a physical corner. Like, I think they'll be like Sauce Gardner. Shut down the other wide receiver. And if you can't tackle him, okay, like someone else will. Like, I think he'll be that kind of, like, yeah, it'll be frustrating at times. He'll give up some more yards than you want because he's probably going to struggle to tackle or something like that. But, like, I don't know. I think a team investing this high of a pick has a plan for him.
IDP league, sure, I'll draft him.
No, I get it in fantasy. I'm just saying I think he's going to play more snaps than you guys think, I think.
I will also tell you, Laquan, if he is going to be that guy defensively, if he really is going to be this shutdown corner, he's going to be a terrible IDP pick.
Yeah.
No, he is. I don't play a ton of it. I'm not super deep in it. There are a lot of people who are way better at this than I am. I did write an IDP column. I did a little bit of it for a few years here. And one of the things I learned quickly is that shutdown corners are terrible IDP players because they don't get opportunities.
That's why I hate IDP.
You didn't want peak Darrelle Revis. You wanted the guy playing across from him. You didn't want Richard Sherman. You wanted the, I guess not Richard because the Legion of Boom had corner.
Mediocre corner that's going to get a lot of tackles and opportunities.
Right, like that's the guy you wanted, So
it's reversed. Okay, I got
It's a little bit weird that way. Let's get to the quarterbacks. There are two guys for sure we know are going to go in the first round. That's Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. We sort of talked about Shedeur a little bit. Is Cam Ward our consensus first quarterback off the board?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So he's first one off the board, and I guess it just becomes a question of is it Tennessee? Is it Cleveland? Is it somehow that he falls to 3 and the Giants?
It seems like the Titans.
It seems like the Titans, right? It seems like the Titans are going to take him
with him. They had a private workout with him.
Yeah, I mean that could just be that could also be them doing their due diligence, right? And they could still turn around and take Abdul Carter.
I think Shedeur's pro day is like April 9th, so like they're not going to wait this long to go try to do all this what they're doing with Cam Ward. Like I think it's a lock at this point that Cam is going to Tennessee.
They also didn't bring in any other quarterback, which you're not going in with just Will Levis.
No, you're not going into the season with just Will Levis. I mean, I would think though, if I'm the Titans, I at least want to, even if I'm sold on Cam Ward, I want to at least give the appearance that I'm still deliberating, right? Like I want some other team that maybe has an interest in Shedeur Sanders to at least be a little bit nervous. I want somebody to call me and say, hey, what if we offer you blank? We just want to make sure we get our guy. Would you be willing to move down? Like maybe the Browns call me, maybe the Giants call me and like say, hey, we want to make sure we get whatever. And, you don't have to accept it, but you can at least put that out there, make some people think, make some people sweat a little bit. Because if you look, the Panthers a couple years ago were just like, yeah, Bryce Young's our dude. That's it. We're done. And then, it just sort of, one, it takes the drama out of it, but also it makes it easier for the teams behind you to play. Like, I don't have to worry about putting together assets to make sure I get my guy. I would be
like, look, we got our guy, but if you want him, you got to pay even more for it now. Like that's how, if I'm the Titans, that's
how they do this. They just put Will Levis in another commercial. Just put him out there like, yeah, he's our guy. We believe him. And then people will start picking up the phone like, oh, these guys are crazy, man. Yeah, let's try to move up and get him. That's how you do it, man.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Shedeur obviously is another guy who's probably going to be gone within the first 3 or 4 picks. I have a hard time thinking he falls too far into the first round. But the name that's sort of interesting here, that kind of keeps bubbling up, is Jackson Dart.
Yep.
Because every year there's at least one quarterback that just makes a rise through the ranks because the quarterback position always gets pulled up because teams always need quarterbacks. And sometimes teams get a little bit antsy and maybe reach a little bit too far. I mean, we've talked about Daniel Jones on this show, right? Most of the football world was shocked to see Daniel Jones get drafted as highly as he did.
Fans were shocked. They're like,
right. I mean, everybody was very surprised. Look, when I'm sitting here, I'm just like looking through mock drafts and suggestions, and I'm seeing Jackson Dart going at number 26 to the Los Angeles Rams.
Oh yeah, I'm here for it.
Are you here for it? How would you feel about that?
I feel good about it. Honestly, I wish this was like how it was like a couple months ago when we were all talking about these prospects, and like he wasn't a first round, guy that was going, but ever since, Senior Bowl, pro days, and combine, like he's kind of just rose to the occasion to be in the first round. I'm not mad at that because the Rams don't have a second round pick. I was actually up for us trading down, like get out of the 26, get some assets and get in that early second round and then get Jackson Dart at an appropriate price. But I'm okay with us pulling the trigger at 26 as well because we need a quarterback for the future. We need somebody that is going to be able to learn with this two-year window with Jimmy Garoppolo in the building and Matthew Stafford. So it's like you need to get a guy that's going to be a project like Jackson Dart because he has some of the great qualities that you want. You want him to have a little bit of courage and confidence that he brings. I like to play him close to like Josh Allen when you're watching some of his tape. Like he has that hero ball and he has that ability to get out the pocket and he ain't afraid to run through you. So I kind of think McVay's been trying to get this quarterback, situation under control with this backup. I would love for him to go at 26 to us, man.
All right. So Jackson Dart at 26, potentially to the Rams. He could be there for the final 7 years of Puka Nakua's career, too. They could sort of, work together.
Oh, man. I don't want to hear that, man. Puka's wilding for that.
I'm just saying what Puka said. I'm not out here making predictions.
Well, if Puka wants to retire by 30, I'm sure we'll get to the wide receivers soon. I got an idea for that as well.
I mean, at some point, we all wished we could have retired by 30. I mean, we've all missed that window.
It's over a full rookie contract. Like I heard that, and I just kept moving. Like I who cares 7 years from now? Like it doesn't impact us.
On a rookie contract for 4 years, and then you get another contract, and you're out within 3-4. Like no.
I mean,
that's cool for him. That would be 9 years if he plays 7 more years. Like
yeah, I guess I don't know.
The asteroid could have hit us by then.
Tyreek Hill said he was going to retire 2 years ago. He's still playing. Like these guys say stuff.
He was retiring a Dolphin, and he almost wanted to leave at the end of the last season. So we'll see how that plays out.
I think the logic for Puka was I think he gamed it out, so it would be 10 years, right? I think that's what it was. Like he looked at Aaron Donald's career. He's like 10 years. He was able to win a Super Bowl. He got out without any major injuries. I mean, I think that was sort of the hope, and like it's a wonderful thought. It's a wonderful idea. But as a really good friend of mine so astutely once said, life be lifing. And so sometimes it just doesn't necessarily work out that way. This is a really deep running back class. That is the one thing that everyone has agreed upon. Is a deep, deep running back class. And I guess you can tell how deep it is because there are two names that we're talking about in the first round, including one potentially in the top 10. I mean, Ashton Genty potentially going to the Raiders at 6. That is a thing that I have seen and heard repeatedly. Florio, the Raiders did not have a great run blocking offensive line. Any hope that we had for Zamir White to be a thing last year was extinguished relatively quickly, right? Things did not go well for him early in the season. He got a little bit banged up. They brought in Alexander Madison, who was predictably meh. I know that we like to believe, I bristle at the whole running backs don't matter thing because I think there are guys who are really talented enough to sort of make a difference. But I will concede that I don't care who you are. If the offensive line is bad, your production is potentially limited. As much as we get excited for Ashton Genty, will it be a little bit of a buzzkill if he somehow ends up in Las Vegas?
I don't think so. I think the volume would be there, and that's what we want. Like we were saying, it was a buzzkill for Brock Bowers going there last year, and
right, but that was mostly because of Michael Mayer. But
yeah, and the quarterback. It was just a kind of gross situation. I think to me, all I want for Genty is a place where he can go and get 300 touches, and the Raiders would provide that. And I do think Genty is a better receiver than he gets credit for. Like they didn't throw to him a ton in college, but when they did, he pretty much he has good hands. He catches what comes his way. Physical runner, tackle breaker, not afraid to run through defenders and everything. The one caveat with him is he is electric. I don't think he has the same second gear as like a Bijan Robinson or a Jahmyr Gibbs. So we might not get as many of those like long breakaway runs. But yeah, I think he's going to be awesome. And if he falls to the right spot, he's a top 10 running back, I would say, in fantasy drafts this summer.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. I think he's got good speed, not great speed. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you see him sort of break from the pack, but then get walked down by a defensive back, at some point.
Right.
No, I mean, I think that's going to happen. Like, that's not a knock on Genty, right? That's not to say that he's not a good player. Look, when we did our last mock draft, he went early second round.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the fantasy asking price for him?
It might be higher. It depends on the landing spot. These things will change. I mean, yesterday's price is not going to be today's price. And I think all the draft hype and all the landing spot hype, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in that 110 area in the first round. And like, that's okay. You know, you get the guy that you think is going to get the volume, and Genty is obviously proven he can handle the workhorse ability. And, you know, you're going to have to pay that pretty price. But if he goes to the Raiders, you mentioned it, that O-line was terrible last season. And I don't see any moves to fix that O-line. I don't see any moves that's making me feel like, okay, that O-line is going to be great. So he will be capped. And he's a rookie as well on top of that. And it's like, you hope that Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll know what they're doing through this draft and that they build the trenches and they kind of address the issues that they have. But Ashton Genty is going to produce no matter where he's going to be at. But I'm going to be a little hesitant in that early second round if it's me on the draft board.
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel like I'm not going to be able to get Genty because he's probably going to be gone. Right about the time that I'm thinking about drafting him. I just feel like there's going to be so much excitement over him that he's just probably not going to be around.
In rookie drafts, he's 101. I don't.
Oh yeah,
super flex or not, I don't care. Like
no. He's I think that's already settled case law. Like I just don't think there's any discussion. I really don't think there's any more discussion about it. Like he's the 101, and you know if you're in number 2, like just start making your plans because you're not going to get him. Amari and Hampton, another guy who's like being mocked kind of later in the first round. And maybe a little bit different than Genty. He's definitely more of a more stout, more power back, not necessarily a speed guy. Not going to make a whole lot of moves, not going to juke a whole lot of people. He may just tend to, as Marshawn Lynch would say, run through a face sort of thing. Again, he really feels, Laquan, like a true landing spot guy.
Workhorse DNA, though. And I think any team that gets him, they will have to utilize him as such. Like, I don't see him sharing the backfield. Like, I know Bucky Brooks, his mock draft 3.0 has him going to the Bears. You still have Swift there. So I kind of feel uncomfortable about that unless he's going to make Swift obsolete. Like, you need to feed this guy touches. Like, back-to-back seasons, he's had over 260 touches. Like, not even Derrick Henry had that in his last 2 college years. So you're looking at a guy that can produce on the ground, run through you, and he's effective in the passing game as well. So I'm like, whoever gets this guy, give him the work, give him the keys to just run crazy in that backfield because he's a straight producer. And that's all you see from him from tape. Like, it doesn't really surprise me if he lands to a spot like somewhere, I would say like New England. Like it will be one of those things like they want to address the rock. They want to address the run game as well with Rabel. That's their guy. I don't see Ramondre Stevenson going to this season after coming off of a very, very, very down career of efficiency as a yards per carry guy. So it's like they need a running back there. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots end up getting them and they move down in that draft, or who knows, maybe they get another first round pick.
Yeah, I saw Bucky's mock draft. He's got 2 running backs in the first 10 picks, which I was like, what is this, like 1997? What's happening here? Going to the Bears gives me a little bit of sad because I am still sort of waiting for the day when Roschon Johnson maybe gets an opportunity.
Oh, wow. Forgot he was there.
Yeah, exactly.
That was no shade.
But, let's just for the sake of argument say if the Bears do take Hampton at 10, that's sort of RIP Roschon Johnson. Like you're not
RIP Swift. RIP Swift as well. I mean, I don't know.
That Hampton reminded me most of was, it's not a perfect comp, but like was David Montgomery, and boom, go back with Ben Johnson. Like,
yeah. I said Todd Gurley because the dude is just electric, but that's just
I don't think he's got Gurley's speed though.
Gurley was fast his first couple years.
Yeah. And then the knee problems happened. And then that happens it's just going to happen. I don't think he's as athletic as Gurley either.
Yeah. He's a chunk gainer, not a home run hitter, in my opinion.
Gurley was special. We get that.
It's funny you mentioned New England. Lance Zierlein's comp for him is Ramondre Stevenson. So,
which I don't know if he's as good of a pass catcher as Stevenson.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Lance knows way more than me, but that was my takeaway.
But I will remind you of what I say every year, because we have not seen a guy do a thing doesn't mean that he cannot do that thing.
Completely agree. But on the ones where he, like, to me, he's the type of running back where like you set up screens for and you don't like Stevenson can run routes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Hampton cannot. Yeah.
Wide receivers, the consensus has been this is not the deepest wide receiver class, although there are a few names we could see go early. I think Ted McMillan is a guy we're going to see probably in the first 10 or 12 picks. Matthew Golden, another guy coming out of Texas, should be exciting. Ohio State, because what's an NFL draft without an Ohio State wide receiver going in the first round? So Emeka Ibuka this year. But what I want to get to is because you guys were sort of talking about this during the break. Luther Burden, fight. I just want you guys, because you guys are on opposite sides of this. So, I will set you up, Laquan, if you want to go first. I just want to hear you guys have a back and forth on Burden.
I'll lay my case. His absolute ceiling on the NFL level has to be Deebo Samuel. But how many times have we seen this whole type of prototype and profile of a player get misused on the NFL level? So landing spot to me matters a ton for Luther Burden. I think more so with the limited route tree, you're not when I was watching his highlights, you're not seeing many different things. I'm watching Deebo run the same type of route. His floor could be Curtis Samuel, which again, there's a stand following for Curtis Samuel, but I just see too much of the same stuff. There's so many things that can go wrong with his landing spot to where he just ends up as a guy. I just don't feel as high as everybody else is on him. He is electric. He is a speedster. He could beat you downfield. All these things are great, but these qualities and traits lie with a lot of wide receivers that are in this draft or in the NFL already.
So it's funny you said he could be Deebo Samuel. I was like, yeah. And you said he could be Curtis Samuel, and I don't know if you saw my body language. It was the air slowly coming out of a balloon. It was just
that's the floor. And again, I feel as though we've seen this story play out so many ways. We see the Kadarius Toney story. We see him go to the Giants. He's obviously the biggest weapon there. He could easily be the biggest weapon at another place that of a team and end up being the Kadarius Toney, except the personality issues and stuff like that.
Kadarius Toney's biggest enemy was Kadarius Toney. That was his biggest problem.
Luther Burden has that in his game. He threw a ball at a player's face. I think he threw a player's mouthpiece. He has that aspect of the Toney in his game.
So we might be on the same track.
But I think Burden is better than that, to be honest. What I look for when I watch wide receivers is, can you separate? And because if you can't separate in college, good luck. And there's a lot of contested catch wide receivers in this class that I'm going to be lower on probably than most. I was lower on Keon Coleman last year during the draft process than many, because if you can't separate in college, I have big concerns if you could separate at the NFL. And Luther Burden can separate. He could separate downfield as well. I think the quarterback play really held him back in that regard. And because they couldn't successfully connect downfield, not Burden's fault, but that I think they started to be well, this guy's also amazing after the catch. Let's use him the way that Laquan was talking about. But I think he has more capability in his game. You put him with a good, strong arm quarterback, I think this guy could win downfield. Like most wide receivers in this class, I think he's a number 2 in an NFL offense. I think he could play the flanker. I think he could play in the slot. I don't necessarily believe he could be your true X all the time, but the skills, the tools are all there, man. He's fast. He's got good hands. He's smooth as can be with the ball in his hands. And that to me, I wrote Percy Harvin as the player that he reminds me.
There you go. That's another one. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think when you talk about guys and their separation in college, I know, for some analysts, it's not as big of a deal if you can win in contested catch situations. I look at a guy like Drake London. He was not a great separator, although some of it had to do with the quarterback play he had when he was at SC. But even now, Drake London is not a great separator, but he's a good contested catch guy. He can win in those situations. It also helps that Drake London is 6'5", right? He's a big dude. Luther Burden, 6 feet even,
My thinking is always separators can win with any quarterback. Contested catch guys are very quarterback reliant, because not only does the quarterback have to be able to make those throws, he has to be comfortable enough to put it in a tight window.
He has to be willing to make those throws, right?
So disclaimer, I'm not fully out on Luther Burden. It just, the landing spot has to be perfect. It needs to be a Sean McVay mind or even a Cliff Kingsbury type of mind. It has to be somebody that's going to be creative of how to deploy him. Because if we just get the same old story of these speedster guys, the jet sweeps and the screen, it's great to see on film, but when they go to the NFL level, they're not always utilized that way. And we've seen too many.
I think Burden's a route runner. I think he's he's capable of more.
But we didn't see it.
I think we did. Like he was getting open downfield. They just weren't connecting.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Laquan. Let's say Luther Burden goes to Denver, right? Where he's got
no, because first of all, Marvin Mims needs to be on the leash, and we're not going to get it because Sean Payton wants to rotate guys. I mean, I just don't see him being a guy that can be involved in the play every single down. Like, what is it? The routes participation? Like, it's going to be one of those things you're like, why is he not being targeted? Why is he not being utilized? Because the offense wants to go this way and it's working this way. We'll pop him every now and again. Like, I need a guy that's going to be out there every single down, going to make an impact and make a difference. Luther Burden, he could do that, but depending on landing spot.
I still think that whenever Marvin Mims puts on the uniform, somehow he becomes unrecognizable to Sean Payton. And then because then after the game, Sean Payton's like, we should get him involved more. And it's like, you're the one who has control over that. Like, why don't you just get him involved more?
Okay. Put him with the Commanders.
But don't you love these contested catch wide receivers, Laquan? Aren't they also kind of similar in that regard?
Kind of. But I like a guy that's going to be physical at the catch point. Like, even if you have a bad quarterback and it's a dookie ball, he can still snatch it out of the air and make the play after the catch. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things that it's a fence with me.
Yeah. I don't know if he goes to Washington because they already have Debo. So why would you want another one?
We got thick Debo.
I mean, it's not like a skinny Batman situation in Philly. It just would be like Debo and. So would he be like Debo the third? Because Debo Samuel Sr., his son is Debo. So would that make? But he's older than Debo Jr. I don't know. We'll think about that.
We have Jaden Reed. He's the Wisconsin Debo.
Dairyland Debo.
Dairyland.
Luther Burden could be like Jaden Reed. That's a good.
There you go. There you go. And Jaden Reed hadn't even hit his absolute ceiling yet. So I think there's more on the bone for him as well.
I guess. I mean, but like Jaden Reed last year was oatmeal, right? In a wide receiver room that didn't have a standout guy, he somehow couldn't even be the standout guy. So I don't know. I think this year for this wasn't the plan, but I think this is a big year fantasy wise for Jaden Reed to sort of determine who he is, I think, for real. Real quick on tight ends, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland. I know we have gotten to a point where we're used to seeing tight ends blossom in their first year. I have been on Tyler Warren for a while. I think if there's a tight end you can take a chance on as a first-year player in the NFL or in fantasy drafts, I think it's Tyler Warren. I think Loveland's a guy who does have potential, but I think he's huge. Another Michigan guy. They've had a really great track record of putting tight ends in the league recently, but I think he's a guy that dude, 6'6", 248. He's a
yikes,
grown ass man. But I think he's one who I think takes a little more development. I think Tyler Warren can potentially be an impact maker right now, for sure.
Yeah. People are gonna expect like Brock Bowers. Like,
don't expect. He's not. That. Yeah, he's not Brock Bowers. Don't expect Brock Bowers level production.
He's better. I don't know. He's bigger, but
he's definitely bigger.
I think he's more.
He stands out.
He's more dynamic because I think he's a guy that you will see him, on the field as a blocker too, right? Like I think he projects more sort of George Kittle-ish in the sense of, wherever he goes, they're going to ask him to be part of the run game too.
Is the name I wrote down? Well, I said Greg Olsen or Kittle if Kittle was Gronk size.
Okay, yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think that's a good comp. So, but I do like Tyler Warren a whole lot for sure. All right, that's just a big start. That's a little bit of a start. We're going to start to break these down by position as we go through, as we get a little bit closer to the draft. Hopefully we get some friends of the show on to come and talk about some of this stuff as well. All right, so last week we introduced our fantasy rookie QB seasons bracket. This is dating back just to the year 2000, so pretty much just here in the 21st century. And the results are in. And whoa. None of them were close. That was maybe the biggest surprise to me. I wasn't necessarily surprised with who won in the first round. I was just shocked that none of the matchups were close at all. Cam Newton, no surprise, moves on over Russell Wilson. Newton getting 87.2% of the vote. The one that has Laquan a little bit salty, Robert Griffin III, 73% to 27% for Bo Nix. Justin Herbert over Dak Prescott, 72% to 28%. And the biggest blowout winner of them all, Jaden Daniels, nearly 93% of the votes against the 7 seed Kyler Murray. So it was completely chalk in the first round of this tournament. Would you like to get something off your chest about the Bo Nix defeat there, Laquan?
Absolutely, because what are we doing here? I think people were more so voting on this just based on real life football, but I'm like, Bo Nix balled out, put up 300 plus fantasy points. I mean, he's one of 5 people to do that since 2000 among the quarterbacks. So what are we doing? Like, I really feel as though like Bo Nix had all the hate towards him going into the offseason. I mean, going into the season and then overperformed. Like, that has to be some type of credit, no?
I guess. I mean, I just think people remember how much of a phenomenon RG3 was.
Man, I'm just mad at the percentages. It should be a little bit closer. Okay, I knew RG3 was going to win.
I was surprised that it was not closer. I was honestly surprised that the Justin Herbert Dak Prescott matchup wasn't at least a little bit closer.
Yeah,
that was wild. I don't think people like Dak.
Maybe
train.
He
crazy.
He could be paying a cowboy tax here. I don't know. Yeah. So that sort of surprised me. Also a little bit surprised that Jaden Daniels won so handily. Although, Florio, I think that's maybe a little recency bias.
I think it's paired with the fact that Jaden Daniels' recency bias, like you said, also paired with the fact that Kyler Murray was a big disappointment in fantasy this past year. So people are doubly recency biased.
Yeah. Now. People forgot about that season.
Could be. No, very much could be. I just, again, not surprised by who won, mostly surprised by the matchup. So it gets us to the second round of our tournament. You got the 1 seed Cam Newton going against the 4 seed Robert Griffin III. So it should be very fun there between a couple of Heisman Trophy winners. In fact, 3 of the 4 semifinalists are Heisman Trophy winners. Cam Newton, RG3, and then in the other matchup there, you got Justin Herbert taking on Jaden Daniels, with Jaden having been a Heisman Trophy winner in his final season, taking on Justin Herbert. Do we expect it's going to continue to be chalk? Will we see 1 versus 2 in this one? You think so?
Justin Herbert doesn't belong in this group.
Yeah, he's very much he's like one of these kids is doing his own thing. Herbert is the guy who definitely stands out in that group. I mean, he's like the one guy who, aside from the obvious visual differences between 3 of the 4 quarterbacks, he's the one who's not mobile. All these other guys have a mobility element to their game.
Got wheels. Yeah.
That Justin Herbert does not have. He's the only real pocket passer in this group. I think Daniels rolls easily. It might be another 93% sort of thing for Jaden Daniels. Yeah. I think Cam Newton wins. Maybe RG3 has a puncher's chance in this whole thing.
I think people remember RG3's rookie year as being better than Cam, even though fantasy-wise, Cam dominates it. But like RG3 won Rookie of the Year over Luck. They made the playoffs, if I remember correctly. Like, the Panthers were awful. Cam Newton balled out.
Yeah, he was rolling.
Yeah, I think that. So I'm curious to see how it goes. So we will have the polls up on Twitter. Just follow the NFL Fantasy account so you can vote for who makes it to the finals. And next Thursday we'll come back and we'll talk about who is in the championship round of this one. I do suspect it's going to be 1 versus 2, but that one could be interesting, man. As you look at if you're watching on YouTube, you look at the matchup there, the numbers between Jaden Daniels and Justin Herbert. I'm just looking at the stats, and Daniels is going to crush Justin Herbert. He's going to crush Herbo. It's not.
He's got recency bias. He's the Rookie of the Year, like college success,
Heisman Trophy winner. It's not going to be close. He's going to completely crush Justin Herbert, and so I'm expecting a Cam Newton Jaden Daniels matchup, and that one. Yeah. That could be fun. So we'll see about that one in about a week. Before we get out of here, we do have to get the Laquan Severance update. I realized that the last time that on Tuesday I didn't say spoiler alert, but I was also like, these episodes came out like multiple years ago, and I feel like these statute of limitations
like
on that
almost 5 years ago.
Yeah, these statute of limitations is sort of up on that. So, but for those of you who are sensitive about that sort of thing, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about season 1 of Severance now. When we last left you, Laquan, you were really considering watching episode 4 without your wife. You said you went on and did that.
Yeah.
One, how did she feel? Has she caught up? And then where are you now?
Look, she's caught up. Okay. And we have cleared season 1. We are on episode 1, season 2, baby.
Oh,
and I
wow.
cannot wait for tonight to get it going. But oh my God. Oh my God.
That was a hell of an exit for season 1.
Yes. And
amazing.
Like, you guys had to wait so many years to see.
Yes. You could have just started right now.
I'm glad I waited because I would have lost my mind. Like, I need to see what happens. Oh my God. Like she's alive. Like, I was just like, Mark. Oh my God. I was just so frozen for the last couple minutes because like all 3 of them, they were all going through their stuff. You got Dylan holding down the fort. And I'm just like, I don't know which one to be more anxiety about. Like, Helly's about to do this speech and ruin everything, which she does. And then I'm just like, okay, what now? And then it's like, oh my God, my man Irvin, man, heartbroken, man, my brother, man. And then you just go crash out on the door, bro. Like, you should have just kept driving, brother. But Mark, that was a dope reveal because I felt like there was something there between the psychiatrist and him. But then, like, when they wrap it up, like, that's his wife, bro. Oh my God. Like, I was just like, I'm locked. Like, season 2, I cannot wait to get rolling, guys.
I'm pleased that you made it through the first season. I was just hoping that you at least had gotten to the music dance experience midway through the season or something like that. I wasn't sure how much.
Was not with none of that.
Yeah, the music dance experience was, a special moment for the folks there in microdata refinement. So I was just hoping you had at least gotten that far. So
the waffle party.
When you finish season 2, we'll talk because there's a lot of stuff
going around.
That from what happens in 1 that comes back in 2 or stuff, or like not even stuff, just like things that, okay, this happened in the finale and something similar, like it has nothing to do with it, but there's a lot that is very tied together. And the only episode of Severance better than the season 1 finale, in my opinion, is the season 2 finale.
Season 2 finale. Yeah. So
wow.
So I look forward to it. So you got a whole weekend to plow through. I mean, the way you went through season 1, I would expect that by the time we come back on Tuesday, you may be done with this whole thing.
I could not stop.
You may be done with this by the time we get to. So look forward to it.
Best show on TV in years, in my opinion.
Look forward to catching up with you. And as soon as they're done with the show, I'm going to watch the music dance experience all over again.
I'm watching season 2 finale tonight.
No way. This is like the third time.
I made it through season 2 rewatch. I got just the finale left.
All right. You can hang out with the Department of Choreography and Merriment. It's going to be fantastic. There you go. We'll be back with you, of course, next Tuesday. We'll start to dive a little bit more deeply into the NFL draft and some of the prospects and kind of what we are looking for. And, we'll have another Severance update and probably some other nonsense because that's what we do here on this show. In the meantime, also, I'm going to take this moment to be selfish as we wrap up the show. I want to take this opportunity to say happy birthday to my favoriteest person in the whole wide world. My son Quentin turned 6 today. So,
wow. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Bubba.
Grandma. It's my grandma's birthday today, too. Anita Jones, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Grandma.
We got the same birthday.
There you go. Happy birthday. So, happy birthday, Bubba. We love you very much. Look forward to, hanging out with you for many, 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 many more years. You are my favorite person of all time. There you go. That'll do it for this edition of the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. Stay happy, safe, and healthy. Do good and live well. Enjoy opening day whenever baseball decides they want to start it. And we will talk to you again next week.